12. September 1960. Hamburg Eimsbüttel. Karl Heine writes on the margin of a sketchbook, Früher zeichnete ich Adler, heute zeichne ich Kühlschränke. Der Trick ist derselbe, man verkauft eine Welt, die es noch nicht gibt. He writes it in a cramped hand. The sentence is honest. It would have been dangerous to speak aloud 10 years earlier. It is the thesis of his life. It is the story of a country learning to remake its image and its appetites on top of ruins. He signs the note, K. Heine. Born 2 March 1910. Hamburg, Altona. Profession, advertising artist. Party membership, NSDAP, July 1933, May 1945. Marital status, widower. Children, 1 son, missing, declared dead 1944. Address, Hamburger Strasse 22, flat 3. Phone, none. Short sentences first. Then the documents expand the claim into a system. The work starts before the work. It begins with paper and line, with composition and myth. It begins with the mathematics of desire. It begins with propaganda, a cutaway into a museum room, a propaganda poster from 1936, an eagle over a stadium, a slogan. The lines are bold. A young Karl is its draftsman. He signs no name. He draws the eagle's wing to catch the light. He learns scale and attention. He learns the consequence of one image placed on a billboard. He learns to compress time into a single look. He learns to promise an order. He learns to sell the future. Then the war comes to the city, and the eagle becomes a shadow, then a ruin. Steel, concrete, blood. Cities in ash. The same hands he used for eagles clear rubble as a trummerman. The same eye that balanced a composition balances ration cards. The same craft that taught him how to make a nation look inevitable teaches him how to make a detergent look essential. The narrative moves in an archival rhythm. Documents drift in and out. There are occupation reports. There are denazification files. There are letters home. There are oral histories taken by the British, by the Americans, by German municipal offices. There are diary pages. There are minutes from Sprüchkammer hearings. There are Allied intelligence summaries. There are local newspapers with brittle headlines. There are Bundesarchiv records. There are photographs of women on rubble, of children holding bread. The story is a weave of paper and memory. 2 May 1945. Hamburg. A city split open. The morning after the British took the city still smokes. The last Luftwaffe batteries are silent. Curfew, roadblocks, armored cars slipping down Reeperbahn, men with rifles, women in thin coats. The mathematics of food, 1 slice of bread per person per day, if you are lucky. Ration cards in pockets, cigarettes as currency. The words Schwarzmarkt appear in the same breath as Beschlagnahme and Versorgung. The arithmetic of survival is cigarette equals sugar, equals a bowl of soup, equals a night in an intact bed. Occupation report. British military government, Hamburg district. 3 May 1945. Population exhausted. Widespread displacement. Food supplies negligible. Civil services non-functional in many districts. Looting localized but persistent. Local administrations cooperating under military oversight where possible. The report is terse. It lists numbers, waterworks damaged, tram routes inoperable, hospitals overwhelmed. It notes a need to identify and remove persons of immediate military or political threat. It uses polite language for harsh choices, curfew, house-to-house checks, confiscation of weapons. It notes the mood of the population as numb, fearful. Fear is a visible thing in the ruined city. It sits in the eyes of women sweeping bombed facades. It appears in boys who trade pieces of porcelain for a slice of bread. It appears in men who remove their lapel insignia and ditch the brown shirt when a British jeep passes, as if the fabric itself might produce trouble. The mathematics of shame and safety becomes simple arithmetic. Visible proof of allegiance increases risk. Karl is there. He is 45. He carries a satchel with a sketchbook. He clears rubble one day. He stands in a line at the distribution point the next. He watches. He imagines lines again, not of people, but of ink. He has learned to see how an angle of light can make a hero. He has learned what it takes to make a crowd look like a nation. He keeps his hands busy. He signs no more posters. He signs no more posters. There are women who will not let him rest. They have a name that will be printed again and again in histories. Tremorfrauen. Much more than a photographic motif, they are the arithmetic of reconstruction. The equation is hard and literal. The city needs labor. The workers are dead, missing, taken prisoner, or in uniform. The women make the numbers work. They remove brick by brick. They use narratives of duty and survival to feed families. Allied photographs of them circulate as evidence, gingerly lifting masonry, sweeping rubble into sacks, using a roller to flatten landscapes. They become, in new promotional images, symbols of recovery. Die Frauen bauten ihre Städte vor ihren Männern zurück, a caption will say in 1947. The caption is half history and half aspiration. The missing family members loom in every ledger, lists of the dead, reports of detachments, a postal notice with an official stamp, vermisst. The arithmetic of absence, one son absent, now tilts a household's resources by 30%. Children go to work. Older mothers take in laundry. Karl's wife Ingrid is dead in 1943 after an incendiary raid on Altona. His son Hans, shipped to the Eastern Front at 18, last written about in a letter dated 9 October 1944. He is missing, presumed dead. The records say, vermisst. The word is a contour that swallows dates. 2. Summer, 1945. The denazification machine begins to turn. The victorious powers issue directives. They demand lists. They demand names, addresses, past positions, party membership. They distribute questionnaires. The questionnaires are paper guillotines. They ask about offices held, affiliations, votes, actions. They insist the answers be sworn. The process is bureaucratic. It is mechanical. It is also political. It needs stability to function. The Allied authorities are faced with choices: purge an entire generation of administrators and technicians and paralyze services, or permit a measured reintegration to allow the state to function. The arithmetic of governance arrives as a compromise. The Spruchkammern are established. The courts are the apparatus of moral arithmetic. They categorize the population into 5 classes: Hauptschuldig, major offenders; Belastete offenders, minder belastet; lesser offenders, Mitlaufer followers; and Entlastet, exonerated. The categories are blunt instruments meant to convert guilt into administrative decisions, imprisonment, fines, loss of rights, or reinstatement. Denazification file. Spruchkammer Hamburg, case number 1427. K. Heine, 23, February 1947. Questionnaire, signed. Item 12. Membership in National Socialist Organizations. Answer: NSDAP member since 1933. Member cards. Active in Reichskammer der Bildenden Künste. No direct involvement in crimes. Item 18. Position of influence. Answer: graphic artist. Various state commissions, 1936-1944. No administrative power. Supplemental affidavit from a neighbor. He took in my son after the bombing. He is a good man. The file grows. Interrogation report. British Military Intelligence, Hamburg. 7. June 1946. Subject admits party membership, claims he followed the rules to keep work. States he contributed to various national campaigns as an artist, including municipal recruitment posters. Denis' involvement in anti-Semitic campaigns. Noted to have worked for conglomerate Hansa Werbung, which received state contracts during the Reich. Further corroboration required. The mathematics of guilt is specific in some cases and vague in most. Some men are obvious. SS leaders, camp functionaries. They go to prison, often after trials that are legal in procedure but limited in scope. Many others, like Karl, operate in shades of complicity. They signed up to survive. They kept their studios open. They participated in images that seduced millions. They told themselves they were just craftsmen. They were not. The Sprüchkammer is less a court of conscience than a filter for functionality. Local municipal officials, often desperate to restart services, write in as witnesses. Employers write. Neighbors write. The system produces verdicts that are political products as much as judicial ones. The arithmetic of talent versus accountability repeats. A city's waterworks must be run by people who know pipes. The printing press must be run by men who know type. A cleaned city cannot submit itself to a total purge and still run. A municipal memorandum. Hamburg Municipal Council, 17 October 1946. Recommendation: the immediate removal of all principal officers with proven SS membership. However, the resumption of daily administration depends upon retaining skilled personnel in municipal works, printing and advertising. Where possible, individuals with minor or ambiguous records should be reclassified as Mitläufer and monitored. The memorandum is honest. It is also pragmatic. The denazification process slows. Many files languish. Many men register as Mitläufer. Many return to desks. Many take on roles in new firms. Many maintain the same work under a different flag. 3. Autumn 1945 to 1946. The waves of displacement hit the West. The expulsion of Germans from the East arrives as a human tide. Millions arrive at train stations. They carry bundles. They carry photographs. They carry nothing else. Many do not speak the dialects of the cities they enter. They sleep in makeshift camps or with relatives who have survived the bombings. They are Heimatvertriebene, homeland expellees. They are a political problem and a social necessity. Allied return lists. British and American occupation summaries, 1945 to 1947. Estimate: approximately 12 to 14 million Germans uprooted from East and Sudetenland. Numbers of arrivals per city: Hamburg, 300,000 additional persons, many without housing. Competing pressures: local population also severely short of accommodation. The arithmetic of rooms becomes brutal. A family of 4 shares a 2-room apartment with a second family. 1 room for sleeping, 1 room for cooking and living. Windows boarded up, heat scarce, coal rationed. The equation of survival demands trade. The newcomers are resented. The locals are resentful. The newcomers are desperate. Both groups bargain in food. The newcomers are desperate. Both groups bargain in food. Karl's building receives newcomers in late 1945. A woman from Danzig and her 2 children sleep on a mattress in his kitchen for 3 months. He offers them tea and a blanket. He watches hours as they unbox a single ceramic bowl that they treat like a relic. He trades his drawings for sugar and for bread. He sketches in exchange for coal. He makes a poster for a local baker in exchange for a loaf weekly. The barter economy is the arithmetic of reconstitution. Tension accumulates. A city with too few rooms needs to choose who receives the windows and who sleeps in the corridor. A municipal statement from Bremen, 1946, lists complaints: physical confrontations in refugee shelters, gangs organizing for control of coal distribution, police stretched, unrest developing where supplies limited. The arithmetic of hospitality becomes a test of civic identity. Who belongs? Who is worthy? 4. Winter 1946-47. Hunger and barter. The winter is severe. Norway and the Baltic are blocked by ice. Coal shipments are delayed. The Marshall Plan is not yet in full force. The ration cards shrink. People queue for hours in the mornings. Children grow pale. The newspapers publish lists of nutritional deficits. Clinics are overwhelmed. The mathematics of food in each household becomes a small ledger. A family of 3 living on 1 ration card must allocate calories to the elderly. The old receive supplements. The young go to work and get nothing. Cigarettes are both payment and passion. A single pack of Lucky Strikes is equivalent to 2 loaves in certain exchanges. Black market prices spike. The arithmetic of survival formalizes into a shadow economy. Occupation report. U.S. Army, Berlin sector. 22 January 1947. Black markets persist. Economic controls ineffective. Cigarettes used as currency. Rations insufficient. Children show signs of malnutrition. Suggest urgent increase in coal allocations and food shipments to prevent civil instability. The suggestion is heeded in varying ways. The early relief efforts are uneven. In Hamburg, a British relief convoy arrives with flour. The municipal baker distributes at a regulated rate. Lines snake through the street. A photograph captures a woman clutching a ration card to her chest like a talisman. It becomes an icon of the hunger winter. Karl draws these lines. He draws hands reaching for bread. He understands the geometry of longing. His hands now make images not for rallies but for advertisements for soap. But the geometry is the same. He composes a mother and a child in a kitchen that looks clean and lit. He composes the idea of domestic abundance in a city of shortages. He learns to sell a future that is brighter than the present. He learns to place a catchlight in an eye and call it hope. 5. Contact with victims. Camps near towns. Near many German towns are displaced persons camps. They hold survivors of concentration camps, forced laborers, and POWs. The camps are under Allied jurisdiction and often run with international agencies. They are both relief sites and testimony sites. For many Germans, these camps are the first place they confront what "done in our name" meant in practice. Report. United Nations Relief and Rehabilitation Administration UNRA DP, Camp Bergen-Belsen, 1945-46. Population composition: Jewish survivors, former forced laborers from Poland, the Soviet Union, Italy, France, and others. Conditions: precarious but improving. Survivors express desire to leave Germany. Many wish to emigrate. Interactions with local populace vary from friction to assistance. The interactions are uneven. In some towns, Germans bring food parcels to DP camps. In other towns, they avoid the camps. There is also a curious geography of proximity and avoidance. DPs are often housed near or on the grounds of former military bases or former concentration camps, which creates an ugly doubling. For local Germans, the former camp infrastructures are places of shame and denial. A municipal file. Hamburg, Bezirksamt Eimsbüttel. 12 June 1946. Note on DP camps near the city. Residents express discomfort with visible survivors. Petitions filed requesting relocation due to psychological distress among children. Some volunteers collect clothing for DPs. Several cases of rivalry and harassment between locals and DPs reported. The first moments of recognition are sometimes brittle. A neighbor discovers a photograph in an attic, a group portrait of a family in torn clothes taken near a factory where forced laborers were billeted. The neighbor remembers carts of coal carried off by the same factory. The neighbor realizes the faces are those of men who had worked under his foreman. The neighbor keeps silent. The realization is heavy. Silence is a shelter. But not everyone keeps silent. There are moments of confrontation. A letter to the editor in the Hamburger Echo, 3 November 1946, prints testimony from a DP woman who writes, "They tell us to forgive. They hand us bread and look away. They come to our camp with gifts, and then they join in the queue for coal. How are we meant to live together when we have nothing in common but suffering?" The letter is incendiary. It forces a public humiliation. The municipal archives contain petitions and a string of defensive letters. School teachers write to parents to calm them. Politicians call for healing. The arithmetic of guilt becomes public in small, sharp ways. 6. School books and memory. As the Federal Republic of Germany forms, education becomes a battlefield of memory. School books are revised. The early textbooks of the 1950s emphasize bombing, exile, and the loss of home. They recount suffering as national injury. They often omit the machinery of genocide. They frame the national narrative as victimhood and reconstruction. There are exceptions. Teachers who bring in testimonies, clumsy reportage in local papers. But the overall tendency is to focus on shared suffering and to postpone questions of responsibility. An Education Ministry memo, Hessische Kultusministerium, 1951. Recommendation: emphasize the consequences of war, the need for democratic education, and the rebuilding spirit. Avoid polemical texts that would polarize young students. Promote curricula that focus on future Europe and economic recovery. The line is a directive in soft terms. It is also a political calculation. The arithmetic of social cohesion demands a narrative that unites. The easier path is silence about culpability and a collective emphasis on loss that spares collective introspection. The municipality produces a pamphlet for school teachers, Unsere Stadt und ihre Kinder. It contains chapters on history that speak to ruins and a chapter on national errors that is thin. It includes an image of a class of school children standing before a bombed church. An accompanying paragraph asks, "How shall we rebuild not only stone, but trust?" It is a brittle question. 7. The advertising turn. The visual language migrates. Between 1948 and 1952, something shifts. The currency reform in June 1948 reorganizes the economy. The Deutsche Mark arrives. Black markets lose value. The Marshall Plan pumps capital. Factories begin to restart. Consumer goods begin to reappear in shops. The arithmetic of availability changes. The Marshall Plan manifests in shipments, loans, and opening of markets. It is also political insurance against Soviet influence. The United States calculates that prosperity will secure democracy. Germany calculates that prosperity will restore identity. An American Economic Report. European Recovery Program Office. 1949. Investment in industrial plant, rebuilding of key infrastructures, and opening of consumer markets in West Germany, predicted to yield political stability and reduce appeal of communist factions. Suggests support for consumer goods production in non-strategic sectors to stimulate domestic demand. The line links economics to politics. You rebuild refrigerators, you build citizenship. The visual language that sold empire refashions itself to sell appliances. The same sense of composition that made a soldier heroic now makes a wife serene in a tidy kitchen. Karl is rehired by a small advertising house, Werbung Nord. He is 50. He no longer signs state posters. He signs contracts with firms producing radios, textiles, detergents, and refrigerators. He finds in them the same substrate, image as promise. The mathematics of aesthetics is precise. A refrigerator and a poster must convey coolness, sanitation, modernity, and abundance. Karl redraws the eagle's wing as a gleam on chrome. He reconfigures vertical lines into kitchen cabinets. He bends a slogan around an object. He learns to use color to suggest fullness. A photographer takes a staged family into a studio. The father, back from work, places his hand on his wife's shoulder. Her face is mild, grateful. They smile with the assurance of a future they have not yet met. The ad copy reads, Frisch für die ganze Familie. The reader is offered an equation: buy this object, gain this future. A creative brief. Werbung Nord, 17, March 1951. Client, Nordkool AG. Objective: present the refrigerator as a cornerstone of modern household. Message: cleanliness, health, and modern living. Visual cues: chrome, white linoleum, sunlight through east windows, mother with child, father in suit. Tone: aspirational, domestic, reassuring. Karl writes on the margin, the trick is the same: sell a world that does not exist yet. He is careful to avoid nostalgia. He refines surfaces. He uses soft shadows. He places the child in the foreground. He calibrates eye contact. He remembers the proportions of propaganda that made a leader monumental and flips them to make the product intimate. The techniques themselves are a kind of reuse. Photographic stylization, heroic lighting, mythic composition, all are convertible skills. The draftsman training of the Third Reich is now an asset to private industry. Printing houses reorganize from Reichsdruckerei to municipal and private printing houses. Typography migrates. The type that once announced referendums now appears in coupons and store circulars. 8. The arithmetic of jobs and the return to offices. The city begins to hum again. New factories hire. Former foremen resume. The arithmetic of employment shifts. Unemployment declines. Skilled workers are hired first. Mid-level managers, a cohort that includes many who had been Mitläufer, return to positions of influence. The state needs skilled technicians. The economy needs communication. Karl obtains a stable contract with Nordkool AG in 1952 as a chief illustrator. His income quadruples in the arithmetic of years, though in raw numbers it is still modest. He rents a room with 2 windows. He buys a small radio. He attends a business reception where a US advertising consultant gives a talk about selling the good life. The talk borrows the vocabulary of positive psychology and the pragmatics of market segmentation. A Bundesarchiv file. Wirtschaftsministerium, 1952. Note on advertising industry: growth in demand for consumer goods will require professional advertising capacity. Consider training programs for designers and copywriters. The industry is key to stimulating domestic demand. What the ministry calls training, private houses call re-education. Copywriters attend courses on persuasive language. Photographers adopt American lighting techniques. The visual grammar of aspiration becomes standardized. The mathematics of persuasion is taught. Repeat an image 6 times. Ensure a clean focal point. Associate product with modernity in 3 visual cues. 9. Contact with victims and the politics of remembrance in the 1950s. As the economy revives, the subject of the Holocaust and the experience of forced laborers remains partially present and partially obscured. Trials continue in some places. Eichmann's capture in 1960 in Argentina and the subsequent trial reverberate, but local engagements are slow. There are moments of reckoning. In 1949, the Hamburg courts prosecute some local industrialists for utilizing forced labor. The trials are limited in scope. Sentences are often lighter than the moral count would demand. Court records. Landgericht Hamburg, 13, March 1949. Case against Firma Hansa Metalle for use of forced labor. Testimony: workers from Poland forced to work 12-14 hours per day. Defense: employment under military directive. Verdict: fine and temporary loss of contract privileges. The verdicts often read like mathematical compromises. The arithmetic of culpability is reduced to fines and temporary suspensions. The economy requires the continuing operation of firms that were implicated. Justice, therefore, bends. The presence of surviving forced laborers in German cities is uneven but present. Some remain as workers, some emigrate, others join DP communities abroad. They leave traces. A Polish woman who had labored at a textile plant writes a letter from her new address in Sweden in 1952. In Hamburg, I would not go back to the factory. I was hired again in Malmö, and they treated me better. But there are nights I cannot sleep because I remember the machines. The letters circulate. They accumulate in the Bundearchiv and in private collections. They are small gravity wells that tug at local conscience. The arithmetic of denial is not constant, it flickers. There are towns where small memorials are erected in the 1950s for bombing victims, but not for the Jewish dead. The local school still emphasizes the Stalingrad sacrifices. The amnesia, where it exists, is both collective and bureaucratically sanctioned. 10. Visual technicians and ethical realignments. The practitioners of visual rhetoric are numerous. Some turn to design schools. Some open private studios. Many repurpose their networks. The same printers who had produced party leaflets now receive orders from municipal tourism offices and from private enterprises. Their technical continuity is unbroken. Their ethical accounts unresolved. There are debates internally. At Werbung Nord, a heated memorandum circulates in 1953. A younger copywriter writes, "Can we craft messages that both sell and instruct? Should our images only manufacture desires, or can they also complicate them?" An older art director replies, "We sell what people want to become. We do not teach history. That is the job of schools and politicians." The reply is a procedural ethic, a separation of spheres. It functions as an avoidance. It also acknowledges a truth: the industry sells, the polity instructs. Yet the industry helps shape desire, and desire shapes politics. In 1954, Karl receives a design brief for a municipal health campaign on tuberculosis. He is asked to evoke hygiene, care, and public responsibility. The campaign uses clear iconography. The same sense that once turned a citizen into a symbol is now used to depict a mother covering her cough. The designer cannot escape the memory of how images coagulate into attitudes. 11. The arithmetic of memory and the Cold War. The Cold War tightens the calculus. West Germany becomes a front line of sorts in diplomatic and ideological competition. The Arad ministers prefer a stable, prosperous West Germany to a resentful, economically destitute one. This preference shapes policy. It also shapes how the past is treated. An Occupation Intelligence Summary. U.S. Counterintelligence Corps. 15. March 1948. Risk assessment. Economic deprivation increases susceptibility to communist agitation. Recommend fast reconstruction and allowance for moderate political reintegration to stabilize Western zones. The recommendation is clear and effective. It produces a political arithmetic that privileges economic growth over purge. The mathematics of guilt gives way often to the mathematics of containment. The past is not erased, but its public prosecution is subordinated to the imperative of current geopolitical calculations. Karl recognizes the logic without fully condoning it. He observes the elections in 1949 and 1953. and notes the rise of Christian Democrats, the prominence of former bureaucrats in new party structures, and the quiet reintegration of many medium-level officials. He is not a politician. He is an artist with a daily schedule. He notices how public commemorations emphasize the Luftkrieg and the Heimatverlust before the Holocaust. The arithmetic of victimhood becomes a political ledger favoring national recovery. 12. Personal compromises and private notebooks. Karl keeps notebooks. He writes in them when worried or when the shapes of images refuse to close. He notes small things as if they were accounts, invoices, dates, faces. He writes the opening sentence in 1960 after he completes a set of 8 panels for a department store catalogue. He has been working 12 hours each day. His son is still a missing column in his life ledger. He received a letter in 1959 from a woman in Krakow claiming to be related to Hans, but the handwriting is uncertain. The claim goes nowhere. His notebooks accumulate confessions in sparse lines. He writes, "I drew banners that made people want to join. I drew fridges that made them want to keep milk. Both make promises." He scribbles datelines. He writes about a former colleague who was arrested in 1953 for Nazi crimes. The colleague's trial is reported briefly. He writes, "We are all participants, some more, some less." He also records small acts of kindness. He sketches a DP child at a playground near the Elbe. He writes, "She laughed once at a bubble. It lasted a second. I kept it as a study in eyes." He includes press clippings about a Holocaust memorial that opened in 1957 in another city, and a municipal debate in Hamburg about whether to fund one. The debate is bureaucratic and long. The municipality refuses funds because budgets are tight. The refusal is recorded and becomes an argument in letters to the editor. 13. The market of memory and the new economy. By the mid-1950s, the Federal Republic moves into marked recovery. The Wirtschaftswunder becomes an economic, cultural, and rhetorical phenomenon. The arithmetic of growth is astonishing in a few years. Industrial output rises, exports increase, employment falls, stores fill with shiny things, advertising booms. Producers of cars, radios, refrigerators, and household items need imagery. The visual industry hires. The new clients have transnational models. Consultants come from America. There are conferences, slideshows, case studies. Karl is invited to a seminar in 1957 titled Modern Consumer Persuasion. He hears a speaker say, "People will buy a future image, not a product only. We must sell aspiration, not specifications." A slide shows a family in a car driving along a sunlit autobahn. The image is glamorous and defining. The slogan reads, "Autobahnen verbinden." It is a politics of movement and of future. The industry becomes an engine of soft power. It offers a domestic revitalization that curbs political extremism. It creates a private sphere of abundance that buffers public disagreements. The mathematics of stability returns again: produce goods, sell desire, secure democracy. It is a tidy formula for planners. Yet the industry also ensures that a certain kind of amnesia is structurally reinforced. Advertising, by definition, is about the immediate and the desired. It is not about historical accountability. The images fill newspapers and posters. They crowd the public imagination with domestic futures. They superimpose a modern aesthetic over the ruins. The past is not erased, it is overlaid. 14. Encounters and revelations. There are moments of rupture. Not all Germans accept the overlay. There are small protests. There are public readings by survivors. There are film screenings that show evidence, footage from liberated camps, testimonies in the cinema. The public responds with mixed intensity. Some walk out, others are silent. In 1958, a small documentary is shown in a Hamburg municipal theatre. It features testimonies of forced laborers who worked in factories in the city. The audience includes men who had been managers in those factories in the 1940s. There is a confluence of gazes. After the screening, a man runs from the hall. The City Record notes that the film led to emotional disturbances among some viewers. The Municipal Archive records letters of complaint and letters praising the film's necessity. Karl attends such a screening once by accident. He sits in the third row. The film shows images of prisoners marching. His chest tightens. He leaves without finishing. He walks home along the Elbe and counts the light on the water. He thinks of the men he had once drafted in pen and ink. He writes in his notebook, "I have been part of an apparatus of vision. I cannot unsee the screen." He does not seek out public confession. He does not publish a letter to the editor. He begins, however, to accept commissions that emphasize social welfare, a campaign for a municipal blood drive, a poster for a soup kitchen. He gives discounts. He hopes to balance the ledger. The gestures are private and partial. 15. The techniques of manipulation from state to market. An analysis of imagery in the Bundesarchiv contains side-by-side comparisons of posters from 1938 and 1954. The composition principles are strikingly similar. The same zones of attention converge on a central figure. The lens of modern advertising is less monumental, more domestic, but the structures repeat. Copywriters use narratives of improvement over time. Designers emphasize body language. The mathematics of persuasion is constant. Attention, identification, promise, repetition. Advertising courses in the mid-1950s include modules on attitudinal shifts. One lecture remembers a wartime slogan as if it were a technique: use myth, create aspirational archetypes, anchor the product in imagined futures.